This is Percy, and that's Harriet, and this is Whisker's Litter Robot 4, the follow-up to their, of course, Litter Robot 3. The big question is this the best self-cleaning litter box on the market? Well, I wish it was a question that was easy to answer, because it isn't, and I have spent about 7 months trying to answer it for you, because there's a lot of different machines out there that need testing, and I've done that. And this is part 1 of my self-cleaning litter box mega test. This series has been my obsession for the past 7 months. What started as a single review of a new machine ballooned into a poop-off. Well done, Pat. Between 7 different machines in my quest to find the perfect self-cleaning litter box. Spoiler alert, none of them are. Well, not yet anyway. I'm going to be looking at the physical design, the practicality, features, apps, loudness, odor control, reliability, warranties, value, ease of cleaning, and most importantly, safety. My testing has been beyond thorough. Having so many amazing cats is invaluable as they use them very differently. By using security cameras on the machines, on my cats of course, 24/7 meant I could observe their behaviour and how they use them. I've also got about 2,000 hours of footage from my proper cameras, which is frankly ridiculous. I've used most of the machines for at least 2 months, some a lot longer and some much shorter due to issues with them. You need this time to really get to know what it's like living with them. For most machines, you only really notice the issues with sustained use. When you've got a cat, or cats like me, and you've got a job, it's impossible to keep a regular litter box clean. I mean, properly clean. My hours are typically very long, so there's nobody home to keep you checking on the litter boxes. But it'll be the same even if I popped out for a few hours. I wouldn't want to use a toilet that someone hadn't flushed. Would you? With these machines, my 6 cats always have clean litter to use. Yep, I've got 6 cats now. Sevvy here joined us on June the 1st. She's a 14-year-old stray from the same beach in Skiathos in Greece as Harriet. If you've seen my documentaries on this channel, especially Smelly, you will already know her. I'll tell you more about her story and why I had to adopt her in part 2. So yes, it's 1 man 6 cats now, but I'm not going to change the name of the channel. The first review that I posted on this channel back in April 2020 was on the Litter Robot 3 Connect. Since then it's been working pretty reliably, with the occasional hiccup, generally fixed by cleaning the sensors, but mostly just by turning the power off and on again. Whilst I've been happy with it, being a gadget nerd, I just fancied a new machine. And there was one on Indiegogo, the Petkit Pura Max, that took my fancy. It said it could recognise your cats by their weight, and with the app, keep track of when they were using it. The thing is, crowdfunding has badly burned me. The previous 2 machines that I'd backed never arrived, and they never will, despite paying in full. So I backed it, and then cancelled it, and backed it, cancelled it, about 3 times. Finally opting to just wait for it to be available on Amazon, which would give me the confidence I needed to spend that much money on it. So that was back in March, and initially I really liked it. I'm not going to go into any more depth on this machine, as there's a lot to talk about. A lot of good stuff, but some quite bad stuff. I'll be covering that in part 2. With the LittleRobot 4, I wanted to see if it justified the $699 price tag. And if, like me, you already have the LittleRobot 3, does it offer enough improvements to upgrade? I've had a beta unit since May and a production model since the summer, so I've given them a pretty intense road test. Poop test? The LittleRobot 4 is much sleeker than the 3. It comes in 2 colours, black or white. I have both, but I think I prefer the white because the black one, it just shows the dirt really easily. More important than the colour is it has a much bigger opening. But the interior space is slightly smaller, especially with the depth, but doesn't seem to have caused any issues with any of my cats using it. The litter bed is a decent size, not as big as some in this test. It is better if they use it with the head sticking out of the front because that's when they poop and pee right in the litter. When fully inside, they don't always get everything spot on. This isn't a huge problem, apart from maybe with Bertie, because when he pees, he rarely does it right in the litter, and it's actually been really useful for showing some of the issues you get with most of the different machines, which I will go into later. Because of the larger opening, if you've got a kicker, expect more litter to be kicked out by them than with the 3. The machine does come with a fence, and it will help with most cats, but not enough for those really enthusiastic kickers. For them, well, you're going to need a bigger fence, like this 3D printed one I have here. At the time of making this video, this wasn't available to buy yet, but they told me around February. But you can buy third-party ones right now from LR Things, and they attach to the standard fence and do an excellent job of stopping that litter being kicked out. The waste bin of the LR4 is an improvement over the LR3's one, although it has a smaller capacity. The reason it's better though is because, well, partly it's half an inch taller, but primarily because during a cycle, the dump port, as Whisker calls it, goes across the entire bin, and that spreads things around. The LR3's dump port is much smaller, and it only goes across the centre section of the bin, so it piles up and rarely spreads out as the waste is, sticky. The LittleRobot 3 uses a laser sensor across the top of the waste bin to detect when it's full. The LittleRobot 4 uses sensors called draw fall indicators at the top of the machine that look down into the bin after a cycle to give a more accurate measurement. It does take a couple of cycles for the measure to be correct, as the bag needs to settle in. The sensors also measure how much litter is in the machine. It also has a much better way to attach the waste bags rather than the annoying clips I could never get them into properly. You just put the bag over the whole thing. Much better. Whisker say for one cat you should empty the waste drawer once every 1 to 2 weeks. Sounds about right. When my 5 cats were using one machine, I was emptying it about every 2.5 days. So yeah, the mathematics kind of work out, which is a bit more than I was getting out of the LittleRobot 3, which was just under 2 days. So yeah, the new drawer design definitely works. It's often stated that you should have 1 litter box plus 1 extra per cat.
Where are you going?
Now, if I did that with the LittleRobot 4, not only would I need to get a new mortgage, I would need a bigger house. In reality, you need to judge how many you need based on how your cats are with them. As I've mentioned, for almost 4 years, my 5 cats all shared the same LittleRobot 3 despite having an alternative in the bathroom. It was never an issue, but it may be for you. I use clay-based clumping litter, which is what Whisker recommend. Use a litter that clumps fast, controls odour, and minimises tracking. Kind of obvious really. Some of the other machines let you use different types like tofu, but not the LittleRobot 4. The gaps just aren't big enough, so it will get dumped straight into the waste drawer. It's effortless to add litter because of that large opening. Whisker has teased a litter hopper for the LR4, which will let it self-refill. I've no idea when this is coming out, but if you are super lazy, this could be perfect for you. I mean, I top up mine once a day. It's really no effort. Just don't overfill it though, because the excess will end up straight in the waste bin like your tofu litter. How quickly you set your machine to cycle after a cat has used it does make a big difference. I've set mine to 15 minutes after each use. This gives the litter enough time to absorb the urine and create some nice solid clumps. For the times they've not managed to pee or poop actually on the litter, if it's on the left hand side on the liner, it will get a coating of litter when it cycles, and that will stick there initially because it cannot clump. Now some of it will fall off naturally, and some will need a helping hand. They really do this on the right hand side due to it not being the most comfortable place because it has that litter holder on the left hand side. A lot of people say, oh, it's going to be really smelly. Well, the only time I can smell the machine is when I'm emptying it, or if Bertie or Jimmy have done a right stinker and haven't covered it over very well. But once the machine has cycled, the odour is trapped in the waste drawer. There's also a filter in the globe which sits over that waste drawer, and they recommend you change it every 3 to 4 weeks. I haven't, but it's fine. Yeah. Which one will you choose, Purse? You got the old one, and you got the new one. Old one, new one. The operating sound is one of my favourite improvements that the 4 has over the 3. It's so much quieter. Oh, Purse! Can I do it again now? The safety aspects of these machines is so important. I'm not going to use a machine that is ever going to put my cat at any risk whatsoever. And this machine is very good. It uses sensors at the top of the entrance in the front panel to detect any cats entering. There's also pinch sensors in the base to detect any obstructions. If a cat enters the machine at any point during the cycle, it will stop. There's even a sensor inside the waste drawer. If it detects any movements when the machine is at rest, it will cycle to the open position, so whatever is inside your waste drawer can get out. Not again. Come on. There's no weight limit stated for a cat to use it. I guess they just need to be able to fit in it. I mean, I tried. I couldn't fit in there. But there is a minimum weight, and that is £5 for smaller cats, which are often referred to as kittens. And if you have some of those, lovely. But make sure the machine is turned off. You can still use it, but just trigger a cycle manually when you go up to the machine. Wait for it to do its cycle, and then turn it off again. The weight sensors are used mainly for measuring the cat's weight and is shown in the app. It seems pretty accurate, but you cannot currently create cat profiles like other machines that are out there to track their usage. I really should have rewritten that. This is going to come to the LitterRobot 4 at some point. I don't know when. The problem is, if you have cats which have a similar weight, like Lollipop and Bertie have, then it's not going to be able to tell them apart. You'll need to buy a tag for your cat's collar so it can identify them. Being able to track your cat's use of the machine is a huge thing for me, and that's a downside of these. If you've got more than one cat, you can't see who has done what, and for health reasons it's really good to know. I'm closely monitoring Bert because his kidneys aren't the best. With the Filacqua, I'm able to monitor how much he's drinking, and with the LitterRobot 4, I can monitor how many times he's peeing. I can double check which cat is using it by using the camera that I've got mounted on it. Thankfully, Whisker are going to be coming out with their own camera at some point, which is why there's a USB port under the bonnet. and that's what I'm using to power my camera. Now, if they can get the camera to recognize the cats, with a bit of AI, that would be fantastic. The app is good. I mean, it's not great, but it's good. It's just missing some of those key features that are present in other apps for other machines, which I've already mentioned. For now, what we have is the ability to set the wait time, the light settings, the sleep mode, see the usage for the last 4 weeks, which is also downloadable. You can also get notifications sent to your phone each time a cat uses it, if you want that. Much more valuable is it can tell you about any interruptions or errors and when the litter is low or the waste straw is full. You can also power the machine off from the actual app, which I do find pretty helpful. If the machine has stopped due to an error, it will start a fresh cycle when you turn it on again. There is a reset button on the machine, but not in the app, and that's for safety reasons. Again, because I have the camera, I can easily check to see what's causing the issue. I recommend plugging your little robot into a smart plug so you can do a restart that way in case your app isn't responding. Having a great app is definitely a big plus for me, as my whole house is just chock full of smart everything. But it is more important that these machines also work without apps. You should be able to control everything from the machine itself. If you have to rely on the app, for some reason the company goes out of business, or they just stop supporting the machine, or more commonly, you lose your phone, then you're a bit stuffed. The machine's control panel has 5 buttons: power, cycle, reset, empty and connect, and a light bar. To access other features like wait time, light settings, and sleep mode, you need to use a combination of buttons or long presses. To know what these are, you've got to do what is unthinkable for a man, and that is read the instructions. And even then, I can't remember what they are. I have to keep looking at it if I want to control it and set it that way. There's no alphanumerical display on the control panel, just that light bar, and that combines colors, movement, and the number of lights. This is really design over practicality. To know what they all mean, once again, I need to read the instructions. Thanks, Whisker. I think it's probably the easiest machine out of all the ones I've tested to clean. The liner is made out of something called thermoplastic elastomer, which is pretty non-stick, although that does depend on the litter that you're using. To give it a simple clean, I just set the machine to cycle and then turn it off when that dump port is over the waste straw. Because the opening is so big, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience to clean it with some wipes. This is how I tend to clean the machines, about once a week or more if needed. I don't often deep clean it, but when I do, it's again very easy. Just press the empty button, which dumps the clean litter from the globe into the waste straw. Then remove the bonnet and remove the globe. There aren't any awkward nooks or crannies to get into. I use a hose, give it a bit of a soak, and then a scrub. If you don't have a garden or catio, then a bathtub or shower will do the trick. Unless you want to have a $700 manual litter box, then don't do this with the front panel and the base because they have electronics in them. Just wipe them down. This brings me to the most significant issue that I've had with the litter robot 4. When you come to deep clean it and you lift out the globe, you may well find that some litter has collected at the front. And if you have a cat pees like Bert does, then there may well be a bit of urine in there too. Every machine that I've reviewed in this series, apart from 2, suffer from urine leaks. The Litter Robot 4 is doing this because of this redesign and the way that the globe now rotates internally. When Bert peed against the edge of the Litter Robot 3, there was no chance of any leaks because the inside is entirely sealed. The only gap is the waste opening, which is only a problem if you're unlucky enough to have a vertical pier. So with the Litter Robot 4 and the redesign, what we have is 2 pieces. We have the main cylinder and then we have the front here. Litter Robot 3 was one piece and it just sort of stuck out there. Here is the weak point where the 2 things meet. And inside here are some brushes which do stop a lot of the litter coming through, but not completely, as you saw. The problem is, if you have a cat that pees up against here, which is where Bert generally does, then unfortunately it's not a watertight seal, so it will go through. If it hits, it's quite easy really when you have liquid hitting a point here, because it's going to spray. When I looked back at the footage from the first review, I saw that he was peeing the same way in the LittleRobot 3. The most comfortable space inside is exactly how he is using it, with his head up by the dump port. This is on both machines. I reported this to Whisker during the beta stage, but they told me they'd only had one other report of this and they didn't have a solution for me. When I got the production model, it was the same. Once they started shipping in numbers though, it became apparent that this was a more serious problem than they realised. So I left them to figure out if they could come up with anything. In the meantime, I was going to try and come up with something myself. This is the standard fence, so I needed to find something to basically cover up a bit more of this. With the standard fence, I just glued on this silicone piece here that I bought from Amazon. Link is in the description. I cut out the shape that I needed after a few attempts, and some little chunks here so it could bend nicely and fit onto the liner. And it's just clipped on like that. And I mean, yeah, it covered over the gap, but just this area here. The problem is Bert peed around here. You've already seen this bigger fence, and it's such a mess because it was very difficult to try and get the silicone glued onto it. I actually probably put too much on here. I probably could cut a little bit off here, but it worked. It looked really messy, and it was a very rough 3D print as well, so it caught everything. But here, this is where he was peeing, and this stopped him. I mean, if he was peeing any higher, I could have put that silicone a bit further up. It did get mucky. I just cleaned it by pulling it out and then running it under a tap. Coming up with a DIY fix was quite satisfying, but you shouldn't need to do that for a $700 machine, and thankfully Whisker agree. A couple of months ago they sent me a new fence. This is not it, this is the original one. I put it on here just so you can be reminded of how much of this liner is showing before I put on the new one. You can see it covers over a lot of it. It really overhangs the gap massively. For Bert to get any pee up there is going to be very, very difficult. In fact, it's so far proven impossible because I've had no leaks since there. I mean, I would like it to extend further out personally to cover over the rest of that liner and gap, but this works as it is. This is not the production one. That's going to be ready in February, but for now, this is great. Bert is absolutely wonderful. He and his brother have just turned 16, and he's been invaluable at discovering issues in this series. So whilst the design has a reasonably significant flaw, creating a problem that the previous design didn't have, what has impressed me is they've acknowledged it and are addressing it. And as you'll see in the next part of the series, this has not been the case with some of the other machines. Now, the support that you get for your machine is an essential factor that you mustn't overlook when choosing your self-cleaning litter box. All these machines can and most likely will go wrong at some point. Whisker gives you a free 1-year warranty, but you can buy an additional 2 years for $100. Should you spend the extra money? Possibly. I haven't had my LittleRobot 4 for long enough to know for sure, but look, if you want that peace of mind, you can actually buy pretty much every part of the LittleRobot 3 from robotshop.com. I'm expecting the same will happen with the LittleRobot 4 at some point. I took one of the machines apart, had a look inside, and everything looked pretty easy to replace. Self-repair once out of warranty is going to be much cheaper for most people than sending it back to Whisker, unless you live near Detroit, where they are based. I don't. I've had a few issues with both machines. Most of them were fixed with firmware, me making a few tweaks, perhaps to the placement of the machine, or by remote calibration of the sensors by Whisker. But I believe these are mostly down to being teething issues with a new product. It's what you have when you're an early adopter, and once they get things all settled in, these problems should be a thing of the past. To cut a very long story short, yes, the LittleRobot 4 is a worthy upgrade. from the LitterRobot 3 for me. Whether it is for you, it really comes down to if you feel that things I've covered in here are of value.
Hang on, sir.
But if you are looking at buying a new LitterRobot 3, then I would definitely recommend saving up the extra money and getting the 4. It is a much better machine. It is much more robust, better made, and it has lots more features and is going to have even more features. So yeah, definitely save up the money if you can. If your LitterRobot 3 is working fine, you don't need another one and you're happy with it, then just stick with that. As long as it is doing the self-cleaning parts, then you're good, aren't you? So how does a LitterRobot 4 compare with the other machines? Well, you'll need to watch part 2 of my self-cleaning litterbox mega test to find that out. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel and got notifications on so you'll know when it's uploaded. If you found this or any of the other videos on my channel useful, then please consider using the super thanks button below the video. It really helps make these videos possible because it costs a lot of money to make them. And of course, helps me feed these wonderful, beautiful, amazing, incredible cats. And yeah, I've got 6 of them now as well, so it definitely helps. So thank you very much. Oh yeah, there is affiliate links as well in the description. So please use those, it won't cost you any more. And sometimes it will actually cost you less because there's some discounts like the LitterRobot 4. And speaking of them, I need to say a big thank you to my Bert, Percy, Jimmy the Greek, Lollipop, Harriet, and Sevvy for their amazing help. I couldn't have done it without you. Well, literally couldn't have done it without you. It'd be weird for me to make this series if I didn't have any cats, wouldn't it?
Oh, you woke up Bertie.
5 minutes later.